Hello Mouseworks fans, and welcome to another edition of Tips and Techniques. And this issue or episode is going to be based on doing soldering. This is soldering part 2. This is actually soldering in use. My last video was just basically trying to tell you how to solder and what happens with different materials. This one actually will be in the field, so to speak, soldering actual parts to a model kit, specifically the Tacom Stug H42, and I'll show you some little tips and techniques on working with its photo etch parts. So stay tuned and let's see what's going on. Okay, I'm ready to do some soldering on a part for the Stug 42, and they have a back rack that is made out of photo etched here, and we have to put it together. This is not going to be real easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually solder these posts to the rail. That way they're a lot stronger. Trying to do this with super glue would be impossible because one piece would pop off while you're trying to glue another. So solder is going to be the best bet. So what I want to do is I want to solder these parts before I bend them. That way I can get them straight and well soldered. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and solder all these uprights to this crossbar at 90 degrees, and I'm going to use this little doohickey here to make sure I get them perfectly 90 degrees. And I'm going to use my soldering iron and some flux and go from there. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the parts from the fret, and I've got this pen blade here that works great. It has a little curved blade on it, so I can actually rock it like a guillotine and pop the little frets off of the part. So what we're going to do is we're going to first do number 10, which is this one here, and I'm just going to put it up against that little attachment piece, and then I'm going to rock it, and it's going to snap right through it. You actually feel it snap. This is one of the best tools to use for photo etched, so I should hopefully have some on my website soon. If you really want one, just let me know and I will make sure I start carrying them. Like I said, you'll hear it crack, and the corner ones are going to be a little harder to get to. And I cut everything on glass, that way it doesn't bend. Okay, so I will get that out of there. It's actually covered in plastic, so I'll cut the plastic off first and then take the pieces out, take the uprights out, and we'll get ready to solder. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my paste flux with this stuff here with a little micro brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of it right on the joint that I want. And what this does is makes the solder flow wherever I put this stuff. So what we'll do, and I've actually decided to use these cross references on my mat instead of the metal cross piece, since these are 90-degree pieces. Let me make sure I get it completely 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm just going to use these cross marks here. Put this little piece on here. Make sure I get it the right way around. Okay. Get it where I want it. Using the flux is somewhat of a kind of a adhesive. Okay. Then once it's where I want, I'm going to secure it with tape. Okay. So we are ready to solder. I'm going to use this solder here. It's pretty small. It's 6232. Got my soldering iron warmed up to about 750 degrees. Clean it off. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of solder, put it on the iron, and then I'm going to touch that flux, and it should flow right in to wherever I had the flux. I want just a tiny bit. You'll hear it sizzle, and that's all that's needed. Give it a second here. Now I would do this on my heat resistant mat, which is resistant up to 950 degrees. The problem is the tape doesn't stick to it, so we're going to use this. Okay, so we're going to let that cool and see where we're at. Okay, now that I've got them soldered, I actually have a little bit of bubble of solder. Even though I use a tiny bit of solder, it's still bubbled up a little bit, so it's three-dimensional. I could try sanding that with a sanding stick, but I might bend these pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Dremel tool with this little wire brush on a slow speed, and we're going to actually just polish it off. I just have to be careful to not bend it. With just a few quick passes, and that solder is pretty much all gone. I'll hit the other side. Just a light touch. And this works wonders. Just don't do it for too long, because you can actually, the heat from the friction can remelt the solder. Okay. Okay, so here's a little close-up of the part I just soldered, and you can see, hopefully this will focus, that there is pretty much no solder there anymore. What's there we've covered up under paint, and they're pretty straight and they're super tough. We'll continue to do the rest. They're pretty much right angle. I did melt some holes in my little non-cutting or my self-healing pad, but it was worth it to get it right. Oh, and don't forget to file off the little nubs if there's any left after cutting them. Basically, I hold them with a pair of flat, smooth jaw pliers right near the edge so they don't bend, and then I'll give it just a light sanding with a stick. And brass sand's real easy, and it's gone, ready to go. Just make sure that you don't sand directly on it. It'll bend this way. Try to sand perpendicular. Yeah, there's a little piece of rubber here and there, and I melted. Now I could also use a fireproof block for soldering, and then draw a grid, and then do the same thing on a fireproof block. Then I wouldn't have that issue with the melting rubber. Okay, there's the bent cage. It's not bent quite 90 degrees, but it's flexible, so when we glue it to the item, we'll be able to do it and match it up. Okay, I'm going to start tacking this little rack on, putting out some super glue. Got my accelerator tube ready, so we're going to just take a tiny bit of it, put it on the block that it's supposed to be sitting on. I'm going to set this on there gently, trying to get it as straight as possible. It's about exactly where I want it. I'm just going to take my accelerator and touch it near it and let it wick over to it. And we're going to let that dry completely before going on to the next one and the next, and I'm going to move down the series this way, and hopefully everything will match up and we won't have any issues. Alrighty, MouseWorks fans, that's a wrap on another edition of Tips and Techniques on Soldering Part 2, and just showing you a little techniques on an actual model kit. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please comment below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to get notifications of whenever I post a new video. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what you think, and as always, keep building. Thanks for watching. See you next time.